travelers, welcome to Life Between Flights, the podcast about travel industry, small business, and all of the interruptions in between. I am your host, Cecily North Rudo, certified travel advisor and owner of Traveling North Travel Agency. Just real quick, so you know how when you're on Facebook, those Facebook memories will pop up from like years ago, and today one popped up from this time in 2020, which is crazy to think how long ago that was now. But my maternal grandmother passed away in December of 2019. And when we had her funeral, my cousins, my mom's family came out, and we were going through her jewelry and things like that. And so I picked out a couple rings and some jewelry pieces from my grandma, and so that memory popped up in Facebook today of picking out a couple rings from her that I had then shared on Instagram and Facebook. And I just had the, desire today to clean those rings and wear one of them going to work today, and then, running around doing errands and stuff like that today as well. And so my maternal grandmother helped raise me, and I always think in my head her youngest sister was a travel agent back in the 70s, so pre-computers, printing out actual tickets and things like that. And they were just always so much fun together, and so I was thinking about them today and having her ring on today. So it's just funny how Facebook memories will sometimes, most of the time it's like, why did I post that? But this one in particular just spoke to me, and I was like, I actually haven't worn her rings in a long time. And so I decided to wear one today. And I feel like, always feel like she's around me. And so today I just kind of needed that little bit of extra support. So today's episode, I'm going to talk about websites and nothing professional. I will be interviewing a web developer, web designer here coming up, but I wanted to talk about websites for people, for travel advisors. I hear all the time agents asking, do I even need a website? I actually saw on a business networking group on Facebook the other day, someone asking about, do you even bother with a website anymore? And it's just an interesting question in this day and age. I think a lot of people think, if I have social media, then that's enough. I am a child of the 90s, and the old original websites, like those still are in my head. The dial-up tones of AOL are in my head. There's something about having just a place to put all of your information and to put all of your own content, I think is really, really important to any business. I definitely, just as a consumer, if I'm looking online and trying to find someone, if they don't have a website or a presence of some kind online, I'm probably not as likely to want to work with them because I can't find out any other information about them. And especially when there's so much competition out there, if the whole reason why someone may not choose you over someone else is because you don't have a website, then it's something to consider. Especially now, there's so many different options for websites, and that was what I wanted to talk about today, because it doesn't mean that you have to have a travel.com website. There are so many options out there for having some sort of presence online without having to go the full-blown, all the bells and whistles kind of website. Of course, you can do that if you want to, but you certainly don't have to. There's so many other options. So today we're going to kind of go through all of the different options for having a web presence outside of social media. Social media is going to be a whole other episode discussion. But so for me, I actually 20 years ago now, I served on a board, and I was actually recruited to be kind of the website person. I knew nothing about websites. I knew nothing about HTML. I knew nothing about coding. This was even pre-MySpace. So all of those of us that knew coding because of MySpace, I didn't even have any of that experience yet. So I learned a lot just by having to jump in and read books. And YouTube wasn't even a thing yet to even go online and try to find online resources on how to do any sort of web design. And so I think that's also why I feel so passionate about having some sort of web presence, is just because I kind of got thrown into building my own web stuff at the early stages of my library career. And even back then, I actually went to a Dreamweaver class, in an actual building in a classroom, and we all had computers to work on and learning code and how to do very specific things in Dreamweaver, which is just so mind-blowing with how easy things are these days. But it was definitely a skill that I needed at the time to be in this board position. And then from there, like, we moved everything to Drupal setting, and then I learned Drupal, which now I certainly couldn't do anything in Drupal. I've had my own website off and on. I've had several like WordPress sites. Even in library school, I had to basically create my own website for our portfolio to graduate. You have to have some kind of web presence to prepare and show all of the things that you did in grad school for your competencies. And so there's still this element of like having to have this web presence. So it's something to think about and consider of kind of what level do you need that web presence to be. So first I will talk about just websites. So just knowing that, my background is definitely more on the technical side of it, and doing more research on cheap alternative options are to having a full-blown like web designer, paying someone to do a whole website for you. I've used Squarespace, I've used WordPress, I've used like the Drupal sites, of course, and then Dreamweaver, like just pure HTML even before that. But there are so many different options out there now, and just through various things that I've done, I've had to use like Basecamp, and we use Wild Apricot now for an association that I'm on the board of. But that's kind of where my background is. And now I'm at the point where I have a website and I could update it if I wanted to, but I just didn't have the time, and I wanted to make sure that a professional was looking it over. So just last year, I hired a web designer to just take over my website and help with SEO and help with just updating things needed on a need-to basis, and having like a blog and being able to just make little minor updates, because my website really doesn't change all that often. So that's one thing to consider. And also, as I mentioned when thinking about host agencies, some host agencies don't allow you to have your own website. You can use a template within their own kind of website. They might not allow you to have your own domain or anything like that. Like, you can have kind of a sub page through their domain. So there's those things to consider if you want full control over your presence online. Those are the things to consider even when looking at host agencies, or if you're fully independent and you can do whatever you want, you certainly want to have some sort of web presence out there. I know some host agencies provide like a website for you and provide a booking engine for you and all of those things. For me, I'm able to do very much what I want to do with my own website and my own brand, which I greatly appreciate. I like being able to have more customization to my website and being able to put in and update like blog posts and like my specialties. I put in my certifications, I put reviews on there, I have my fees on there, I have the link to the podcast on there. I also have like a map of where my clients have traveled to, which is one of my favorite things on my website now. And then of course, when I have upcoming like cruise group space, I'll put it on there, or any specialties like golf vacations or book club travel. Those are all on there as well. And so that's definitely one. If you want the most customizable option, it's going to be creating your own website in whatever format that is. So let's say that you don't want to build a custom website, or you don't want to hire someone to build a custom website for you. There are some other options out there, especially if you are part of Host Agency Reviews. They did a review back in 2023 of different website options for agents, whether it's a third-party service or building your own, and like compared options and costs. So that's something to check out, and I will link in the show notes. But one option for agents that is travel agent-based websites that you just pay a monthly charge for. It was called Passport, and now it's called VacationPort. And so it's basically just a pre-built template, and it will, depending on which service you have, you can put in obviously your contact information, your logo, things like that. But then all of the things within that site are all things that are already plugged in from VacationPort.com. So they create all of the content and put everything in there, and then you just basically share that information. So it's a way for clients to find you, and they can, you have your presence online, but all of the content and everything is kind of already done for you. So you don't need to worry about, updating things or sharing anything like that. It will give you some options for like themes and colors and things like that. And then you can pick and choose which suppliers you want to highlight and any offers that you want to highlight, but it's all kind of pre-made, pre-done for you. I do know several agents that use this option, which I think is great if you don't want to do anything at all. You just want to have a presence online. And that was definitely before some of these other options came online. So another third-party option is VoyagerWebsites.com, and that's another one where they have sort of templates already built for you, and they can build, it's already content already pre-made, so you can just set up your site with your information, but then they provide all of the content and updates and things like that. Again, it's a monthly fee. They do have an option where you can just do a social media side, or you can do a website, or you can do both. And the website really just provides their pre-designed library, so you can, choose from your templates and things like that, and they will update, the content for you. So you're not having to do any work on any of that. You don't really get to add your own content. It's just already providing all of these other things for you, pictures and weather conditions and articles and things like that. They have a whole bunch of different widgets that you can add if you want to. So there's things like that, but you are just kind of picking and choosing from their content to add it to your website. So another option is that if you are part of a consortium, like I've mentioned many times before, I am part of Travel Leaders, and one of the services that they provide for us is called Agent Profiler. And that is a web page where we can go and put all of our information, our contact information, our names, our photos. We can include certifications. We can put in, trips that we've planned. We can include a map. We can include videos, stories about clients, all of those things. It all goes into a site, and it's searchable online. If you're searching either Agent Profiler or Travel Agent Near Me or something like that, it's going to pop up. Travel Leaders puts in a whole lot of money into the marketing for all of that, so those results will pop up above many others. And so that's another option, is that if you are part of a consortium that offers a service like that, that is absolutely one of the first things you should do, is set up something like that where a company is already investing so much into that, and all you're having to do is provide your content. And with that one, they do suggest that you update something in it within like every 2 weeks or so, just because then the data crawlers will keep finding your information and keep bringing you up to the top of the results. So if you have, you have something new to share, or you have another photo, or you can just change a couple words in your description, now you have so many options where you can add in stories, or you can add in different trips that you've worked on. You can add in new photos or videos, things like that. You can put in new certifications. There's so many different options in it. So if you really don't want to have a web presence, but your consortia or maybe your host agency does provide something for you, take advantage of that. It certainly doesn't hurt to have it, and especially when there's already an infrastructure and financing behind it to help with the results, then you should absolutely be using that. And then of course you can share that on social media. You can include it in your signature in your emails. You can include it anywhere really, and that's a huge piece for me. I know, Travel Leaders really is trying to help support agents and get us leads, and I have certainly gotten several leads from it over the years. So that's definitely, something to look into. If either your consortia or your host offers something like that, definitely take full advantage of it. So another option that I looked at back in 2023 was Travify. And, I love Travify very, very much. But the one thing that I've used the landing pages for Group Space, but I have not actually built a website through Travify. But it is absolutely an option. Since you're already paying for that service, you might as well add on the website if you don't want to do anything else. The thing that I didn't like about Travify was that I couldn't make it as customized to what I wanted my website to look like as I could doing it on my own. So that's the only reason why I haven't used Travify for my website. If that wasn't my preference, I would absolutely be using Travify for my website as well. It just makes it so much easier. You already have all of your information in there. It is customizable as to what you want to highlight, as far as you can always, anytime you create a landing page, it can be part of your website. Anytime that you create an itinerary, you can highlight it on your website through Travify. It's definitely, if you are looking for something where you want to have more control but not duplicate effort, Travify is definitely a great option for that, because it does allow you to share all of the work that you've already done and highlight it on your website through Travify as well. And then of course you can always just have your Google business page. That's always very important to set up as well. I just set mine up I've had mine set up for a while, but having to go in and actually like update your location, update your settings, update your website or your contact information, and then making sure that you have the link for people to write reviews for you, and making sure that, you know, you're responding to those reviews as soon as you can. All of that stuff is very important to keep track of as well. And you can also get all of the analytics from that and see just where you're getting leads from and how many people are finding you on a monthly basis, all of that stuff. That is the other thing that I really like about having my own website, is that I can track all of the analytics across it and see, you know, how people are finding me, what pages are they going to the most, you know, where people are from, all of that stuff. And if I really wanted people to spend a whole lot of time on my website, I would be building a whole bunch more content and having many more pages and like blog posts and things like that. But really, I just want it to be a place for people to go to pay my new client fee, and they can find out about all of my fees and my services, and just know that like I'm a person. It has my picture on there, it has all of my contact information on there, and then I can, you know, that's really what it's for. I don't really care about bounce rates, or I don't need people to be spending a ton of time on my website, because I really want them to go there. They can set up an appointment with me to talk about any travel plans through Calendly. There's a link for that. Or they can look at, like I said, they can look at the links for my fees, they can look at my certifications, they can look at anything that they can book themselves online, like through my Viator link or Project Expedition or any of those. Those are all linked on there as well, because there's so much that you can customize doing your own website. And like I said, we're not really going to dive into social media, but of course, having your own, you know, if you have your Facebook business page, which you definitely should have to be advertising. I also have a VIP Facebook group that I use to promote to clients and just people that I, you know, want to connect with, and I share very specific deals and talk about different topics and things specifically in that group. And then you can also use, like, I also have like a LinkedIn page for my business. I have a YouTube page for my business. Of course, all of the social media stuff is out there. And then I also have a digital business card that I use. It has all of my links in there. Of course, it links to my website. It links to all of my booking links, like the Viator and Project Expedition and all of that stuff. And it's also just my contacts. So if I'm out networking or if I'm at an event or something, I can just share that with people. And then I also get their information in return, which is also super helpful when following up with leads and wanting to network and connect with other people. So if you do have a website, you know, you can always have a lead magnet or something like that where, you know, you want to be gathering people's information when they come to your site if you don't have it in another way. So that's also, you know, what I want from my website is to have, I used to have a lead magnet and I haven't had one there for a while now. I need to maybe that's a good goal for this year, is to set up a new lead magnet, but to have some sort of way to gather people's information, which is not always something that you can get through Travefy or through some of the other services where you don't have as much control. You might not be able to put up a lead magnet where you're gathering email addresses for your newsletter or something like that. Well, I hope that this discussion has helped give some ideas for whether you need a website or not. Of course, everybody is different, and everybody, again, this is your business. You get to decide how you want to run it and how you want people to find you. There are so many options out there. Some are free, some are very low cost. Of course, some can be way more expensive. It just kind of depends on where you want your business to be and how you're using your space and having your online presence, however that looks to you. It's totally up to you. That's the great thing about it. Like I said, I like having a very customizable website for my information, but I think Travefy has a great product. I think the Voyager and the Passport options are really great for keeping updated information and keeping your contact information out there. And they're doing all of the behind the scenes work for you. So you can just, share all of that. And then of course, taking advantage of the programs like Agent Profiler, or using anything like your LinkedIn page or digital business card. Any of that stuff can also help as well, where you don't necessarily have to have a big web presence and your own, flashy website. You can have kind of some of these other things that help, as long as your information is out there and it's updated and correct and has, a headshot from a recent headshot, not one from 20 years ago, all of those types of things. But like I said, we will also be talking to web professionals in another episode that will hopefully have some better, more specific tips. But I just really wanted to have that discussion about what's beneficial. And like I said, for everybody, it's just different. It just depends on what you want your your business to be and where you want people to find you and how you want them to find you. And with that, until next time, safe travels, and may your luggage follow you wherever you go. Today's episode of Life Between Flights was sponsored by me, Traveling North, produced by me and edited by Nomad Creations. Please check out the show notes for referral links, discount codes, and more resources that I've talked about in this episode. You can also follow along on our social media on Facebook and Instagram at Life Between Flights Pod. If you want help planning your next adventure, you can always check me out at travelingnorthagency.com. If you have any questions, ideas, or would like to sponsor this podcast, you can email us at lifebetweenflightspod@gmail.com.